Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of The Unconventional Outdoorsman. Today I'm just going to go over some of the different types of terminal tackle you might use for bass fishing. Try to keep the video as short as I can. I've got a few different things to go over. I'm going to start with weights, the different types of weights you might be using. I don't have all the ones you can be using. I've got a bunch of different types here. We're going to start with like one of my favorites, one of the ones I use the most. That's bullet weights. So I've got a few different types here. I've got lead, steel, and brass. Now, bullet weights, as the name suggests, look like a bullet. They come in a bunch of different sizes, a bunch of different weights. My favorite is either 3/16 ounce, 3/8 ounce, or 1/4 ounce. You definitely want to coordinate with what type of water you're fishing to whatever type size weight you're going to use. You can use this for a lot. I use it for maybe a Texas rig style swim bait with one of these style hooks, which I'll go over in a little bit. Or, never mind with that hook, but one of these, rather, something like that. If I want to make a swim bait, I don't have a swim bait hook or something. Texas rig is always good for that. Even catfishing with those, if you don't have a big catfish weight or you're just fishing in a little pond or maybe a little creek with not much flowage, you might want to use a 1/4 ounce like that, always good. Also, you can use it in a Carolina rig, stuff like that. Alright, so next weight that we will go over, where is it? Split shots. Now I use these for creek fishing sometimes whenever I might have a small lure on, for example like this. And for example, I'm using a heavier rod and I need to get some extra casting distance. I'll put like a very small little split shot on there. And what a split shot is, it's basically a circular weight that has a like a little crevasse in the middle. And you just put your line in the middle of that and you squeeze it down with a pair of pliers. And it adds an extra 1/16 ounce, 1/8 ounce, whatever your weight is on there to it. And that's a good type of weight to use for a lot of smaller fishing. Sorry, I'm rambling here. I just woke up. Let's think. Next, we're going to go over jig heads next. I've got a few different types. Now, jig heads, the main thing I use them for is like smaller bass, crappie, white bass, stuff like that. So, you've got your basic painted crappie jig head here. This is like a chartreuse and white with a red eye. And you can put basically any type of lure on that. You can put a swim bait if you wanted to go with a bait that big. Personally, I like a little grub, maybe like a little tube, something like that for this. Also, if you don't want to, these are probably a little bit more expensive, but if you want to go pretty basic, stuff like that. These are also really good for too if you want to do some live bait, like a worm or a shad maybe. It's always effective for that. Either way, whatever you use this for, it's really effective, and it's really good because you don't have to put an extra weight on that. Most time, that's all the weight you need. And they're pretty inexpensive and readily available wherever you're going to go. So, also something, if you're going to use a jig head, one of my favorite things to do with them is use a little spinner like this. Something like that adds a little bit extra flash, makes your bait a little bit larger, adds a tiny bit more weight, might give it that extra ability to have the fish come in for an extra look and maybe even bite your lure. So, it's got this little thing, you put the jig head on here. Alright, something like that. Then you'll look like that, you'll put on your soft plastic and you'll be good. Now, if you want to go really big, I've got some walleye jig heads here, which I use for really big bass. If I'm going to use a swim bait larger than this, it's a Bass Pro walleye jig head, something like that. Big hook. I've caught plenty of bass on those. Those are pretty good. Big swim baits, large soft plastic stuff like that. That's pretty effective for. Now I'm going to go into the different types of hooks that you can use for bass fishing. I'm not going to go over every single one that I have here. I've got like 18 different types, but I'm just going to go over a few basic ones that a lot of people have used or use to this day. My favorite for most of the bass fishing I do, if I'm going to use a regular hook, is a offset, like a T-rig style hook. This is red. You can get them in red, black, gray, gunmetal, anything like that. This is like a basic. They come in a bunch of different sizes. Probably my favorite size is either a 3/0 or a 4/0. Seems like you can get the most range of baits in there. They make a 1/0, 2/0, all the way up to a 6/0. Along with that, you can also get an EWG, which means an extra wide gap. And with that, oh man, dropped it almost. And with that, you might be able to do a little bit more weedless fishing and even use a a swim bait on there. Like I said, I was talking about the bullet weight. What I would do with the line, put the bullet weight above the hook like that, and then put the swim bait on there. Pretty effective. I've caught a lot of fish like that. A few other types of hooks. This is more of like a fluke style hooks, something like that, which is a different type of soft plastic, which I'll be making a video going over a few of the different types of soft plastics that you can use for bass fishing. If you guys would like to see that, please leave a comment down below. Also, something I will go over is a shaky head. Shaky head is more of a finesse style fishing. You fish it on the bottom generally. It's you know, got the weight up here on the top, and then you screw your soft plastic in right there, and you can weedless, do it weedless if you want, or you know, just regular and keep the hook exposed. Personally, I like weedless. You know, catch a lot less grass and more fish. And then there's a couple different things here. You've got like a jointed hook with like a football weight on it. It's an extra wide gap with a little swivel, and then it has a little weight. That's for like bigger soft plastic swim baits again. I don't like using these because I fish a lot of rock bottom creeks and lakes. I get hung up a lot, and I like to fish more mid-water. So, you know, you can do that. Also, I showed you the spinners, like if you wanted to use for the jig head. But for example, say you're using like a soft plastic swim bait like this, like I've showed before, and or just like a regular rubber worm or something, and you want to add some flash to it. Say it's a little bit overcast, you want to make your bait a little bit more shiny, or you know, give it flash rather. You can put something on like this. Now I don't use these too much. I do when I'm fishing deeper water, especially if it's a lot clearer. I'll do that. Maybe a little bit sunny, and I'll put it on there. But it really adds some extra flash to it that you might need if you want to get that bite on some of the days where the fishing is tougher. Now you've got some other different styles of extra wide gaps, some smaller ones. They've got anything from a 1/0 to a 6/0, like I said. But that's pretty much all. I know you've got your different style of finesse shroom head, something like that. Let's see if I can find it. Had it in here somewhere. Must have used it. But there's tons of different hooks and weights and all kinds of stuff that you can use for bass fishing and all that. But if you'd like to see some different ones, just leave a comment down below and I'll try to make a video about it. Also, I forgot to talk about this. This is like a little peg weight. Something you can put in soft plastic. For example, if you're going weightless and you just want to add a little bit more weight to get it down a little bit lower to the mid-water, you just literally just shove that in a soft plastic, and it adds about a 1/16 ounce of weight, which is, you know, pretty effective for some types of fishing. But that's all I have for you guys today. Please have a wonderful Saturday. If you haven't, please subscribe. I see a lot of my viewers haven't subscribed, so please do me a favor and go down there and subscribe. Hit the notification bell to all notifications, and have a wonderful Saturday.